Hi everybody, I'm back and today I'm going to talk about Alan Gratz's new book, Refugee. So I heard about Refugee way back in 2017 before it came out. Some other librarians and teachers that I know had an arc of it and they were talking about it all the time at this book club that I do with a local intermediate school, Go Brookside, and I could not wait. So I was on hold for the audiobook. And I was on hold for a while because I just got it right at the beginning of January. If you watched my January, the books I read in January video that I posted earlier, you'll see me talk about it briefly. And I'm really glad that I waited for the audiobook. So Refugee is shockingly a story about the refugee experience. It's told from 3 different perspectives. So it's told from a young boy named Joseph in Germany in 1939, I believe, during when the Nazis were coming to power and taking over. And Joseph is a young Jewish boy whose family has to leave, and they are, for the most of the book, they are on a cruise ship headed from Germany to Cuba, where they hope to disembark and live in Cuba safely. Then the second story is about Isabel, who is a young girl in, I want to say 1998, 1999 to early 2000s in Cuba, which is struggling after the fall of the Soviet Union, and Cuba's just not doing really well. Her dad has made at least one attempt to leave the island. Castro sets a moratorium on people who want to leave. So if people want to leave the island, they can do so without being caught and jailed. So she and her family decide that they're going to team up with a neighboring family and they're going to escape and try to make their way to Miami, where hopefully they will get to dry land before the Coast Guard can pick them up because of the wet foot, dry foot law, I guess. Kind of agreement. If they got all the way onto dry land, then they were able to seek refuge there. If they were caught or picked up before, they were taken back to Cuba. So they're hoping to get all the way there. And then the third story is in 2015, and it's the story of Mahmoud, who is Assyrian, and he and his family are forced to leave their country and try to make their way to Germany. So it's kind of a really cyclical thing. And every chapter switches perspective. And I'm really glad that I waited to listen to the audiobook because each portion of the story is told by a different narrator, and the narrators fit in with the nationalities and the genders of the narrators, of the characters. This was a heavy book. This was a really important book that I just kind of from being pretty well read and sort of informed about the world in general, were stories that I kind of knew, but this really puts it on a personal level. Alan Gratz does a really great job of getting into each of these characters' heads and making them each completely unique. They're all the same age, but they live in different time periods, so they still have a lot of similarities, but just personality-wise, each of them kind of stands on their own, besides being brave and resourceful and really resilient kids who are going through just horrible situations. But they kind of shine in their own light, if that makes any sense. And they all have different families and different dynamics within their families, which were all really well fleshed out and really wonderful. Joseph's dad has come back from Dachau, and so he was in a concentration camp, and he's dealing with that on this long voyage across the ocean, which is really hard on their family. And Isabel and her family and her best friend's family are all stuck on a small raft in the middle of the ocean with no GPS and just the water and stuff they could bring at last minute. And Mahmoud's family is trying to make their way across countries to try to get to Germany, and it's really hard. And every time you think oh, this is a middle grade kids book and something good is going to happen to these kids, something bad happens to them. It's really hard. But, okay, I'm going to start crying. But it's so good. There are lots of ways that Alan Gratz could have embellished or added real life details to these stories that would have made it inappropriate and kind of crossed the line for a middle grade and a young adult audience that he toes. And maybe as kind of a jaded adult, I was like really on edge and like worried that he would kind of put things in about, I don't know, like sexual abuse of kids and things like that, but he doesn't. He like leaves that out. But even in doing that, like it's still really gritty and really profoundly real and just like really upsetting. But I think it's a really important book to read right now. I think currently I'm making this video instead of watching the State of the Union address because I think that these are topics that won't be addressed in ways that they should be, and I'm really glad that there are books out there that are doing it. So before I start crying, I am going to finish this video. So I don't want to talk much more about the book because it's not very long, and you should go read it yourself. But if you need to read it slowly, I know other people that I've talked to, it really hits them in a really place that's close to home because they know people personally or you know, related to people or even have experienced things like this themselves, and that's really sensitive. So be gentle with yourself and read it slowly if you need to, and if you don't know anybody who's experienced anything like this, if you've never experienced anything like this yourself or read anything, then I really urge you to read it. Books always give us a window into other experiences that we haven't had before, and sometimes they're wonderful and exciting, like becoming a wizard and getting your letter to Hogwarts, and sometimes they're really upsetting and show you a part of the world that you're really happy you haven't had to experience. So anyways, I said that I was going to wrap it up and then I just talk some more. So that is Refugee by Alan Gratz, and that's it for me. So make sure you do those nice things that you can do on YouTube. Like this video, comment below if you've read the book, what you thought about it. Share this wherever you share YouTube videos, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. Yeah, that's it for me. So I hope you have a good rest of the day, good rest of the evening. I hope that you're safe, and I hope that you have a good book to read.